The idea for Graveyard Carz, really it came from the purchase of a car for a client.
A customer up in Canada was looking for a 71 6-barrel Cuda, but he didn't really want to go out and pay $100,000 or $150,000, whatever they're bringing at the time.
So we looked for a while. What we were looking for was a project. It had to be a 71 Cuda, had to be a 4-speed, 6-barrel, and a shaker. I had come across a car that I had known of that had set out in the Alpine area that had been wrecked and basically parted out over the years, and it was truly a BS23V car. It was a 71 Cuda 446-barrel 4-speed, and it was a real shaker car. As it came around, it looks to me like the front end probably hit another ditch, which is what drove it up in the air. You would have thought this just a wadded up pile of crap and it's not worth anything. Well, my client paid $50,000 for that car.
It was a wreck. People were saying he was going to rebody it, which is illegal.
A rebody is a word, I don't even know if it's a real word. The inference from it is you take, let's say, a beautiful little 71 Barracuda that belonged to the little old lady from Pasadena, that old thing, right? It's a 318 car, it's in mint condition, it's just a nice survivor, it needs a light restoration. You take that car and you cut the numbers that make our car a real live 71 Cuda out of the cowl, out of the core support, take the dash vent off, and you put it all onto this car, and you do all the necessary changing of things that go along with it, like torque boxes and reinforcements for the leaf springs, and you make that car look like it started life as a 446 barrel 71 Cuda. That's a rebody. I don't do that. My goal was to restore the car back to OE specs like we do everything and save as much original metal as possible. That was going to be my goal. Some Mopar enthusiast sites got hold of it and they had decided that bullcrap, they're not going to fix the car, they're going to rebody it.
They were all questioning on how this car was actually going to be restored, if it was going to be basically just taking numbers out of this car and put in another car or whatever, which is against the law, which is a felony.
And I got very defensive about that. I decided, you know what, you guys are too short-minded to see that this car is restorable. Maybe you haven't been around a real restoration shop. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm going to prove it because I'm going to document it.
I've seen Mark restore some pretty rough stuff, so yeah, I was pretty sure he could do it.
I had a client at the time that had a 67 Satellite, Preston Smith, and I was telling him the story one day. I was in a bad mood. I said, I'd like to document it. Do you know anybody that would, have some equipment that could walk around this car and be available on Saturdays to document it? And so his son, Aaron Smith, who's also the executive producer, one of the executive producers on the show now, he came down on a Saturday.
Rolling.
The car that you see behind me is a 1971 Cuda. It was rolled July 5th, 1980. And we began pulling on this car, and he was filming the pulling out of the quarter panel and the squaring of it, and I was trying to teach people as we went along what was important in it. Slow down again, I'll kick your face in. Aaron, he was laughing all the time. I do it all the time. Well, when he was done, he said, you guys ought to have a show. If American Chopper can have a show, you guys have a show, because that stuff is funny. You guys are right, and this is very interesting stuff. That's where the first seed was planted for Graveyard Carz. He got involved. His dad, Preston, volunteered to run audio and help hold cameras, and we began trying to structure something that would be a watchable show.
Susie said that Mark was going to make a TV show. What did I think about that? And I said, well, if anybody could do it, Mark could do it.
We shot a lot of little test things, basically just little sections and segments and stuff, just to see if it would be funny, if it would play, if it would be entertaining.
You remember back a while ago when we were talking about using things off the car that all you asked is if I asked permission first?
No, no.
Can I just finish?
No.
After doing a lot of that, we finally decided we were going to put together a pilot.
That's when the idea is for what would it be like, what kind of settings will we have, what spirit is it going to be in, and that's what started the idea of maybe the Halloween or the macabre thought. Before we did anything else, I came up with the name Graveyard Carz. I had, and I still have them on my laptop, I have about 20 different names written down, but I liked Graveyard Carz. Graveyard Carz in itself is self-explanatory. It says Graveyard Carz, so these got to be dead cars. So that's the first thing you think of. Then, depending on the artwork and the creativity behind it, you could really tap in on the whole Halloween theme. We're set up out here at Lone Pine Farms tonight to be able to show some of our fans the Cuda in real life. They can walk by it and see it and watch it spinning around behind me there on the turntable. We're handing out candy to the kids along with little flyers that say become a fan on Facebook. The more fans we have, I think the more realistic we'll look to the networks. If we can come to TLC or Discovery and say the minute you put us on television you got 10,000 fans watching, it didn't cost you a dime of advertising, I'm thinking that that's a great approach.
What do I say to our fans? We love you, we need you. Be a Graveyard Carz fan.
In the beginning, Mark had this idea to do an animated open for the show.
I said I wanted an opening that was two guys go out, they get in a hearse, they drive through some cemeteries, they find a grave where there's this dead Carz, which represents our 71 CUDA, dig it out, take it back to the lab and get started.
He bounced the idea off me, I thought it was interesting, and then like before I knew it, he had already had this 1 minute animated open done. I thought maybe it would be cool if we did a cold open for the show that was live action for the pilot. And then all the subsequent shows would have the 1 minute long cartoon version.
I didn't know what went into it. I had no idea what went into it. The difference between making something like that, which would be considered scripted, you have marks. I don't know what a mark is. My name is Mark. I don't know what a mark on the floor is, but you got these marks you got to hit. You have lighting that has to be set up for hours and hours while you're waiting for them to set the lighting up for a 2-second scene. I mean, anybody that's done it probably knows all this stuff, but to me, kid from Springfield that didn't know anything about it, nor did I desire to know anything about it, was highly enlightened after doing that.
When we were shooting this, we went to Darren's house. Mark somehow manipulated Darren into letting us shoot there. And we went out into his property, he's got a pretty big area, and we made it look like a graveyard, including actually digging a giant trench with a backhoe and burying the 71 CUDA, like really burying it. And it had a headstone, it had everything. I mean, this was absolutely ridiculous.
We had a backhoe that was in use around there to move dirt and, you know, fix the scene and everything before it was filmed. And Mark, we set the car in the ground, which was fine, but then Mark had the brilliant idea, wouldn't listen to me, about covering his car back up with dirt. And he kept putting dirt back in the hole, covering the car up, and running over the dirt back and forth, the backhoe, packing the dirt down in the hole. So that was the idea, to pull the car out with the hearse, with the winch on. I actually had to hook the backhoe onto the CUDA to pull it back out of the ground and rip the front inner structure off the CUDA.
Mark never actually paid the guy to fill in the hole. So Darren just had this ridiculous hole on his property and like a pile of dirt and had to like deal with it himself, and he was so mad at Mark. This whole process to shoot took, gosh, months. Like we started in October and we got a lot of the stuff shot, and we just kept going back and getting more shots and more shots and more shots, more graveyards.
I was first hired to help with effects for the cold open. And so they shot a whole bunch of stuff during the day, and they needed it converted to night shots. And so I was hired to do compositions in After Effects.
I remember Casey would go back there and he'd trace something out, track it, he'd be there all day. And then trying to render it out on your little 24-inch iMac. I mean, we had our work cut out for us. It was an enormous amount of work.
Aaron Smith, what's your official title here?
Official title is Predator. A Predator is a producer, shooter, editor.
When we started, everybody was really stiff in front of the camera, even Mark.
Having a camera in your face, no matter how, you know, confident you are, and I'm a fairly confident guy, I thought for sure, well, this is just a piece of cake, you know. I looked down a couple of times, that's okay, right? I mean, it's more natural just to peer at the damn camera. Yeah. When that camera comes on, you stifle a little bit. You're second guessing yourself, especially after the first time you see yourself.
First time I saw myself on video, I looked horrible. I was fat. The camera really does add 50 pounds.
You know, I don't think anybody likes really seeing themselves on video or hearing their voice, because their voice, they always believe it sounds really strange. So it was a lot to get used to, you know, seeing yourself on the camera and looking at all your imperfections and just all your mistakes.
Having a camera on you for the first few months is awkward, and you're not yourself, and I think that it takes a certain amount of time for you to become just yourself.
For about a year, I spent weekends just running around the shop, following them with the camera, shooting just anything and everything just to get them acclimated. Every time I had the camera in Darren's face, he would just constantly berate me. You know, what you doing with the camera, buddy? It's a waste of time. Get out of here. What are you doing with that? Get out of my face. And just on and on and on. And then Royal would just see me and just kind of like, you know, slink off.
I was very uncomfortable. I'm a behind the scenes kind of guy, you know. I like to hide in the back.
But after a while, they started to kind of just get used to having a camera around all the time.
We were shooting on Vixias, little Vixia camcorders. That's how the original pilot was made. The guys learned a little bit about how to crank them up and make them perform as well as humanly possible. So we were out there with $800 camcorders shooting at this pilot. If we needed to get 2 shots or 3 shots at the same time, and one guy was trying to listen to some audio, we had to use one of the guys from the show. So in some cases, when we were shooting the original pilot, Royal Gayland Yoakum, Chrome Dome, was actually holding the camera, and he was shooting some of the footage.
I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I mean, I know what I wanted to see, and I guess it worked out okay. They used some of it.
It was a pretty ambitious pilot. When you watch it, you'll see there's a lot of stuff involved in it as far as cinematography for our level. You know, I'm proud to look back at it.
After we got the pilot done, we decided, okay, we're gonna take this disc and we're gonna send it out to the networks. We had a couple contacts at some of the bigger networks. We had a description of the show written out on really nice paper, and we bound it and made it a really nice presentation, and we sent it out to some of the bigger networks. And they'd say, yeah, we don't really have a place for your show at the time. And so we did that for a few months, and we finally realized, okay, well, maybe we should make like a trailer, like a movie trailer for it. We didn't know anything about television production. We just kind of seemed like a good idea to make a shorter version for people to watch. So we cut a trailer from the pilot. It was about 4 minutes long, and we put it online. And we put it online on probably a Thursday, and by the next Monday, we got a call from a company in Los Angeles. And they said they loved the show, absolutely great. They wanted it to sell to the networks. This was beautiful.
Their job is to take your idea, put it into a presentation that makes sense, pitch that to a real network, and have the network say, yeah, I'd like to see that developed. The first appointment they had was a big major network, and that major network really liked the premise of it. They liked the characters. The showrunner and the network were very interested in it, but the only way we'd be interested in it is if you made it into a payoff show. We would need, if you're gonna do 13 episodes, we need 13 cars restored in 6 months. If you're restoring a car to OE specs, you're gonna take one of these cars and have it judged based on one nut that's located underneath one bolt underneath the carpet, whether it does or doesn't have nickel cadmium or zinc phosphate on it, that takes time. So you're not gonna have one every day, you're not gonna have one every episode.
So how many cars are you getting done? We go, well, I don't know, maybe one in the first season, maybe. That's a really hard thing to sell to a network that really wants that big aha moment at the end where there's this nice finished car. They decided that they wanted to sell this cookie cutter car show. Well, you gotta get one done every single time. And we go, well, we can't do that. We don't have the resources to do that. These cars take too long to actually restore.
And they said money wouldn't be the problem. You'd be able to hire the crew to do it, which was, you know, that was nice that they would offer that. We could help you get these cars restored from a financial standpoint. Could it be done? It could be done, but it couldn't be done right. And I'm not gonna do it. And that's literally was the end and the meltdown of that whole idea of taking my show and really handing it over to somebody else to work it over and make it into whatever they wanted it to be. And I would just be a character on the show, as would Darren, as would Royal.
It wasn't presented in the same way that we wanted. We designed this as a character show that happens to be around cars. And so, you know, it's about Mark and Darren and the other guys. It's not about necessarily the cars.
When I had decided that probably wasn't going to happen, we actually rode that out for a year, but most of the networks that came back either weren't interested in it or they wanted to do the same thing. They needed that cookie cutter type of automotive show. And so that's when I started reading and started learning a little bit about, well, why don't I just make the show myself? And if I can get a finished product, I can take that to whatever network and say, how would you like to air it?
We decided that having somebody else present our show probably wasn't the best thing for us because we couldn't get somebody to actually get the concept that we were trying to get across.
We were looking at alternative ways of getting the show out there. Turns out that there are some folks who kind of got started in the reality TV business by making a show and selling advertising and then being able to get that show on and actually making money through the advertising. So we thought maybe we could make that happen.
We decided that we would shoot an entire season. We would shoot 6 episodes. It was a short season, but it's still a pretty big commitment.
There was a lot of backlash with friends and relatives. It was even probably more difficult for people to accept that were close to me that cared, they legitimately cared, when we didn't even have a network.
I don't remember anyone that had anything positive to say about it. And so I thought it was basically flushing money down the toilet.
We really had no confirmation that we were going to even sell it. It was a total gamble.
We were going to make 6 episodes and do something with them.
I had actually been introduced to the show way before I even met Mark. Alyssa would bring over DVDs, pilots. My stepdad is actually Darren's cousin. The quadruple black Cuda is my stepdad's old car. I grew up with that car in my life. You know, ever since I was about 9 years old, that thing's been a part of my life. We'd get yelled at for sitting in it, you know, just pretending that we were driving these cars on high-speed chases, all that kind of stuff. The day that my stepdad sold that car to Mark was the first day that Alyssa and I went on our first date. It's just weird, you know, how things like that work out. Not too long after that, it was when I met Mark. I had no idea that I was actually going to be on the show. You know, I pretty much thought my place was working for Mark, you know, just working 8 to 5 at the time, and then I would go home and live my life. Mark came to me and just handed me a microphone one day and just said, go ahead and put this on, man. Next thing I know, I've got a camera in my face, and, you know, you get stage fright. You don't know how to act.
Recovery rock star. It's delicious.
Rolling.
Pilot episode, take 1.
The first 3 or 4 episodes were literally shot and edited by Casey Ferris and Aaron Smith.
Aaron, how's the day going shooting Graveyard Carz?
Day's going pretty good.
Yeah?
I'm getting exhausted
Why are you exhausted?
because I haven't shot like this in a long time. One of the discussions that we had in the very beginning, we had just got these new cameras, Casey and I both.
The shoot is going relatively well. We realized that we don't know how to run our cameras that we both spent a bunch of money on. It's a completely different experience than shooting with the little baby cameras.
I think it's funny, this is a $2,500 camera and a $99 lens. Most photographers would just like be angry at us for that, but when it's knocked down to essentially a little over 2 megapixels, which is, you know, around what HD is, then what does it matter? We wanted to shoot the entire show with these new cameras because we really liked the look of the DSLRs. Part of that meant that we had to reshoot the pilot in order to make it look the same. Plus we had guys who were in the pilot who were no longer working at the shop, so they were no longer in the show. We didn't want to reshoot the pilot. We just thought, okay, we can just kind of trim it down and, you know, and make it work. And Casey was adamant. He's like, no, if we're gonna do this, we need to reshoot the pilot. We're gonna reshoot the entire thing. So we went to a local TV station and we just bought a chunk of time. And we even went out and had commercials made for various clients that went into the show.
Well, choose Mackenzie Stone & Tile, and their design staff will make that decision easier. Mackenzie Stone & Tile, exceeding your expectations.
And they said, okay, you know, we'll show this on Saturday nights at 6. You know, not the greatest time slot in the world, but it was something.
And we were airing Graveyard Carz, at least in the beginning, just on a local TV network. But it really wasn't quite what we wanted. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't on an actual big network.
We actually got to a point where they were waiting for the episode the day before, and we didn't have the episode done. And so we kind of got in a position where we said to each other, you know, we really need more help, because if they're wanting to play one of these every week and we're just barely getting in on the deadline, we gotta speed up.
2 of the guys that are there today, Dan and Sam, they both came as interns and they worked for, I think, 6 months.
My first position here at the division was to do camera. It's a really cool experience. I like it a lot of good information, a lot of good hands-on experience. I like it. The productivity is good at times, usually only when Mark is not around. At the time, I was going to school with Sam.
I don't remember what my first job was. I think my first job...
Everything.
I think my first job here was to run camera and edit bits and stay up late on like mowing Lunchables.
Another good friend of ours named Richard Cronach, who eventually became not only our audio recordist on set, but ended up producing probably like 90% of the music that we use in the Graveyard Carz. He's an amazing, talented musician. He is a sonic Superman. With anything that can make noise, he knows how to recreate that or master it or mix it or whatever. The guy is just a genius.
Running sound on our particular reality show is not easy. It's very hectic. We're running around, we're chasing people outside, chasing them back inside again. There's a lot of free movement, unpredictable actions from the talent. Wrestling, fighting each other, punching each other. And so we are challenged with our equipment, basically.
Shooting season 1 of Graveyard Carz was like textbook Ghetto video production.
Oh good, my red's here. After I've been freezing!
We didn't have any money for a budget, none. In fact, the truth is we went backwards a lot as a company.
You know, we had our cameras, we didn't have zoom lenses, we had fixed focal length lenses, which meant if we needed to get closer to something, we had to literally run toward it and run back from it.
What are you doing, man? This way I can see the screen and I'm waterproof.
We had no light in the shop. We had sodium halide lights, like 6 of them.
And you need light to shoot anything. And the shop was ridiculously dark. So we're running around just trying to make these things work. And for audio, we had a computer that was hooked up to something that we would punch our audio into. So I remember being on a shoot with Casey where we literally had an iMac in the back of Mark's Dodge Magnum. And we had the back flipped up, it was raining, and we had all of our audio there, and we were trying to get a line of sight so we could get clear audio. It was the most ridiculously ghetto filming situation.
We are looking for a place to illegally drive irresponsibly without permission. Such is guerrilla television making.
Yeah, well, you can't get permission to do what I want to do. I'd like to go 200 miles an hour sideways into a little kid. Okay, no.
As far as the actual structure of the show, there was none.
We took a lot of heat for quite a few of the first season 1 episodes, but what they don't really understand is not a lot of money was being made, or any money being made in the Mopar restorations at that point in time for Graveyard Carz.
Tell us what our seasonal budget is.
That depends. Are we getting coffee at Dairy Mart, or are we actually driving through a fancy coffee place?
Very little money, very little time, no money to plan.
It's about 5:30 at night, and we're about 2 hours from home. Who cares about our personal lives, right? Who cares?
I think we were all just kind of going with whatever we thought might work.
We would come in the morning and figure out what Mark could do that day, shoot the content that happened, and then figure out how to assemble it into an episode.
Spend a day shooting and get 8 hours of footage.
Once you spend a day going through footage, that has 2 cameras and looking at each angle and each moment, trying to figure out how to make a story out of it, and there's no story there.
I was thinking, oh my gosh, what of this is usable? And then you look at the final product and you're like, wow, that was the usable stuff.
Anything else had more structure than that. We had no idea what we were doing. Casey would come to me and say, okay, we gotta have something on a car. When it came to real car work, there was very little real car work because we had hardly anything to do and we didn't have the money to buy the parts to do them.
Finding parts. Parts was like the biggest thing. It's like, if they could order parts, then they had to wait however long it would take to get the parts, and then those parts would get lost somewhere in the building.
So we were making a little go as long as we possibly could. But between not having the funds to be able to buy the parts to finish the cars, and the idea that we wanted to develop the characters.
One of the things that we wanted to do from the beginning was really build this into a character show.
We were trying to show how much of a family we are. We fight like cats and dogs. But we also spend all that time together like a family.
We want the audience to get acclimated and acquainted with the personality of the characters that are on the show. And a lot of people fight that when it has to do with cars.
Calling a show Graveyard Carz automatically attracts people that love cars.
Cars is in the title of the show. People expect to see car work. But the overall vision for the show, and this was even hard for me to kind of wrap my head around at the time, Mark wanted to blend a character-driven show with a show about car work.
So the car guys get upset that the guys aren't working on cars, but they don't realize that everybody else is falling in love with the characters. The hope was that if we established these characters well enough early on, whether we got a car done at the end of the episode or not, people would still be entertained and still love the show.
It was so hard to find that balance, and we wanted it to be entertaining, we wanted it to be funny, we wanted the characters to be memorable.
I think we got a little bit overzealous about character development. I think we could have took 2 seasons, but we didn't know if we were going to have 2 seasons. We didn't know where we were going to end to develop the characters to what we kind of crammed down the throat of the audience in the first 3 episodes.
It was a learning experience, and it was something that everybody needs to go through to evolve. You have to take that leap of faith and do it, and then from there you get the knowledge.
This is the latest disclosure. This is the latest disclosure. This is the latest disclosure. It has been established that the recently dead are coming back to life.
You're lucky I don't throw you in there and just shut the trunk.
You're gonna have an actual aneurysm, and I can't wait till you do. I'm scared of getting stuck out in the backwoods. I watch all those movies. Son of a gun, look at that.
Almost 30 years.
Heading up to Salem to look at the 1970 Super Bee that's supposed to be a factory paint car.
We haven't put any time in on the CUDA.
It's like somebody took a pop can and wadded it up.
Call 911 right now so they're here in time. My name is Mark Warman, and I bring dead cars back to life.
You can't move, right? Go ahead.
Hey, before we do this, why don't we run audio? Good audio.
For most part, what you see is what really goes on behind the cameras and in front of.
If you were to come down here and go out to lunch with the crew, you would see that. Cameras are off, doesn't matter. Mark is constantly making fun of people. Darren is constantly playing us little manipulative games. Royal is the guy who's quiet and working, and Josh is Josh. I mean, everybody is very much who they are on camera.
The way Mark acts on TV is very close to how he is in real life. He's a very, warming guy when you meet him and stuff. He's very compassionate and loving to his family and to his little doggies. But he also is, even when the cameras are off, you can hear him tearing up one of the guys painting a car out in the paint booth, just belligerent, just freaking out on him. He doesn't know he's being recorded all the time. A lot of times we'll be watching through the footage and it's hours and hours of footage. Hey, everybody come here, this one. And so we all kind of gather around and hit play and we all go, oh my gosh, you have to cut that, that's awful.
It's more like when we start fighting, it's can I snap back at you and make fun of you to a point where, because I think those sting a lot more than a punch. If I can get you to question something, your hairline, your face, your wrinkles, that's gonna stick with you at night.
Mark, just as difficult in real life?
Everybody actually in the show, except for myself, is how they are in real life. I'm really not like this. This is how they want me to be, the character they want me to portray. Anybody that knows me personally knows I'm not like this at all.
Darren is exactly like he is on the show. Darren has caused so many backups in the show because of who he is. Like, we'll try to shoot and he'll be like, no, buddy, I can't come in. Nobody told me to come in. And you're like, we told you yesterday when you were here. Do you not remember that?
The game from a person who is not on TV, who doesn't need to play it up or whatever. The game is real. He will learn things about people just by sitting and observing and listening. And all this is ammunition that he puts into his gun. He will convince you that he's not the enemy, everyone else is. And he manipulates other people by doing that exact same thing.
The weird thing is, you think you're building a good relationship over the course of a couple months and you're just chummy with him, and then you can come in one day and you can say hi to him and that'll just snap him and he's your enemy.
Darren's mad today. I didn't mean to make him mad. Sorry, buddy.
I think Darren's in the wrong line of work. I think that he should go play Survivor. He would win $1 million.
Darren, how was lunch, buddy? It was okay. Are you mad at me?
No.
Why are you acting all crazy?
I'm just calm and collected, buddy. That's me. It's a new me.
Why didn't you sit with us?
It was more peaceful at the other table.
Darren always likes to look at things, the glass being half empty. Darren honestly is one of my best friends. I want to pat him on the back because he makes me respect myself more for being a more positive person.
In long-term, Josh, he's pretty much just like he is on the show, just a good guy. Just a good all-around guy and a great father.
Josh is just genuinely one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
I love Josh. Me and him are best buds. We went to the same elementary school. I mean, we're almost the same age, and Josh is a kid like us.
Josh is an awesome guy. He's always very optimistic. What you see is what you get with Josh for sure.
Royal is a very bald, quiet man.
Royal miraculously gets along with everybody, which is crazy. I mean, him and Mark have been friends, I guess, forever.
They were best friends growing up. They've worked on Carz since they were teenagers.
As Darren is like constantly crazy and Mark is constantly crazy and Josh is just kind of all over the place, like Royal's always very focused on things.
Royal also, like Josh, is just a genuinely nice person and a very, very hard worker. He's a really talented guy. He's got a lot of skills and backgrounds in carpentry and other areas.
He's easy to get along with, and you can't hear anything he says. See, that's Royal talking.
One of the most frustrating things in the world is putting all this time and effort into this TV show that's not on TV.
Where can I watch it was the most asked question when I told people I was working on Graveyard Carz.
I'm working on a TV show. Oh, okay, what network's it on? Well, it's not on a network yet. It's going to be.
So in the middle of production on Graveyard Carz season 1, Mark was still frantically making phone calls trying to find someone who could sell the show. And he got lucky and managed to make a contact. And I guess if you call 100,000 people, one of them's gonna be legit, I hope. And we got the show sold to a tiny little network in Italy. That was the first sale, and that happened about episode 4. And so finishing up Graveyard Carz, we knew that, hey, this is actually gonna be seen. This is actually gonna go on some network. It's gonna be a really tiny network, it's gonna be in a foreign country, and it's gonna have to be dubbed, which is really funny, but at least it's gonna be on a network. That was sort of what started the dominoes. Well, as soon as we got it accepted into one little network for a very, very small amount of money, it was like, okay, good. One person wants us, great. And so then that sort of built from there, and then another little network, and then another little network, and then eventually we finally had some interest from Discovery.
We're mailing off the new cut Graveyard Carz pilot episode called Emma's Car to our distributor, who's at NAPP in Florida this week, because she is going up to Maryland on Thursday to meet with Discovery Channel and hopefully sell Graveyard Carz to the world.
We had been sending out DVDs to networks for years to sell this show.
How many times have we done this exact thing?
3,000.
How many networks do you think we've sent this off to?
A lot.
How many treatments have we written, printed on good paper?
Yeah.
And overnighted them to people?
Too many.
Too many. If people are watching this, that means that we've made it, and that they have bought the limited edition Blu-ray.
Oh, I see. To all you freaks at home, it's too bad you couldn't have been on board earlier and saved me lots of time and pain, punishment.
Yeah.
When we first got word that we were going to be on Discovery, and that we had got picked up, and the show was going to be aired in America, that was a super cool feeling.
What do you say to that? Holy cow, this is a huge network.
A show that I had a hand in creating was now going to be seen by potentially millions and millions of people. It was a very humbling feeling for sure.
It was really exciting. It meant that it was really becoming real.
All of our friends and relatives couldn't believe it, that they'd actually purchased it.
It's hard to get in the U.S. The U.S. is the toughest market out there. You can license people in France, Italy, Germany, Southeast Asia. We had Eastern Europe, we had Africa, we had all over the place. But getting one to buy in the States, that's tough. So it's a huge kudo when you do get somebody, especially somebody as big and as popular as a Discovery Channel like Velocity. So yeah, we were all walking on air.
And we actually got to watch the first episode of Graveyard Carz airing on Velocity by Discovery. And that was the coolest thing, because from the very beginning, that's what we wanted. We wanted to make a show that we could get on one of the Discovery networks. That was our goal. And so to start on something, about 3 years earlier, and to put all this time into it, and then to see that happen was pretty amazing.
The resources I had, filming a television show, running a body shop, babysitting a bunch of lunatic, crazy people like that. The Birdman from Alcatraz, right there. You got a bird nose.
When you watch the show, when you watch the end product, you can really see the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this program what it is today.
We're all, hometown guys, kids, right out of school, and we're able to come together and make a show on television from Springfield, where we grew up. which is like unheard of.
Aaron worked at a local television news station. I think he ran camera for the news, and then later he did some editing. But none of the guys that are here have ever worked outside of this place on television.
They take bits and pieces to make it look like the complete story. I was totally amazed, actually.
They're in the know. They're reading, they're studying, they're nerds. You know, they're those computer nerds that sit there and read about what's out, what's next, and then they're not afraid to try it.
We really do have a group of amazing and talented people, and I'm constantly just in awe at the talent that we have here. So it's very cool because those are the guys that make me look good.
But it looks every bit as good and is responding every bit as good as the biggest shows out there in our genre.
We're all just really, really fortunate, really blessed to be able to work on a show that is fun, that isn't, you know, some weird local ad campaign or something like that, but a really fun, really high quality show that lets us be creative.
We have a blast working on Graveyard Carz, and it's the kind of show that when you're working on, there are numerous times when you really have to stop the camera from shaking because you're laughing.
When I get up in the morning, I feel very lucky and very blessed because I don't just get to go to a job and, you know, punch the clock and do whatever. You know, I get to come to work with my best friends, literally my best friends, and do what I love to do, which is to be creative and do production and artwork and be in an awesome environment with people that I love. So what's better than that?
It's more like coming and playing with my friends every day than going to work. And that's something that, you know, you can't really get everywhere.
Something that started out as a bit of a lark, a bit of a long shot, has metastasized to a point where it's no longer, now it's something that people actually recognize and show some respect to when you're talking.
It's hard to believe where we started and where we are now. It's unbelievable.
We all love each other, and there's nothing that none of us wouldn't do for each other. You know, the past, 5 years working with Mark has been the most insane journey that I've ever been on.
It's been really fun to watch all of us grow together.
In my mind and in my heart, when I look back over the journey that get me where we're at, I have almost forgotten about anything that was an obstacle. Graveyard Carz is a dream come true. My mother's proud of me. I don't know what else you can really ask for when your mom says, I'm so proud of you. If my mom's proud of me and we're doing well and we're bringing dead Mopars back to life, I'm as happy as anybody could ever be. I owe a thank you to everybody, you guys as well as people at home.
That's good.
Yeah. Who's your daddy?
That works.
Yeah. Who is your daddy?